The chamber was enormous, built to make visitors feel small. Ambassador Tay stood in the center with his team, surrounded by representatives from 47 alien species. Each one sat in special seats designed for their unique bodies. Some breathed different air. Some saw different colors. But they all agreed on one thing today. Humanity had to go. Tay wore his formal uniform, dark blue with silver trim. His face showed nothing. Beside him stood Yuna, the science advisor with sharp eyes and quick mind. Next to her was Day, military liaison with shoulders broad from years of service. Hana completed their group, young but brilliant at understanding alien cultures. They had spent 3 months presenting Earth's case. 3 months of evidence, arguments, and pleading. None of it mattered. The lead counselor, a being that looked like floating crystal formations, spoke in a voice that translated through everyone's earpieces. The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding humanity and Earth. Tay felt Yuna tense beside him. He touched her arm gently. "Stay calm," the gesture said. "Humanity has been part of galactic society for 200 years. The counselor continued. "In that time, your species has caused 3 major incidents. You have created weapons we banned 10,000 years ago. You expand too fast. You question too much. You do not listen to wisdom." Another counselor spoke, this one resembling a massive insect. "You are children playing with fire. We have seen species like yours before. They always destroy themselves or others. We will not allow it." A third voice joined in, this from a creature of pure energy contained in a suit. "The Council has decided. Earth and all human colonies will be placed under quarantine. You will be confined to your home system. We will build automated platforms around your space. Any ship that tries to leave will be destroyed. All humans currently living in Council space must return home within 6 months. After that, any human found outside the quarantine zone will be arrested." The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes, and things that weren't exactly eyes, watched the human delegation. They expected anger. They expected threats. They expected humans to show why they were dangerous. Tay simply bowed. It was a slow, respectful gesture. "The Council has spoken. We thank you for your time and consideration. We will inform Earth of your decision." The lead counselor's crystals shifted in what might have been confusion. "You do not protest? Would it change your minds?" Tay asked calmly. "No," the counselor admitted. "Then we accept your judgment. Earth will comply with all terms." Tay bowed again. "We ask only that you ensure safe passage for all humans returning home." "It will be done," the counselor said, now definitely confused. Humans were supposed to be emotional, unpredictable. This calm acceptance was suspicious. Tay turned and walked toward the exit. His team followed. As they passed through the massive doors, Hana whispered something to Yuna. The science advisor smiled. Just a tiny movement of her lips. Several counselors saw it. They didn't understand it. They should have. The human delegation's ship was small compared to many in the docking bay. As they boarded, Day finally spoke. "That went exactly as we expected." Day 5 deformant. "Worse, actually," Yuna said, pulling up holographic displays. "They're giving us 6 months. I thought we'd have at least 8. 6 is enough," Tay said, settling into his chair. "Send the signal." Code word. Exodus. Hana's fingers flew across her console. A single message, heavily encrypted, shot toward Earth faster than light. It contained just one word, but that word would change everything. The flight back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, the Council's decision spread across the galaxy. Most species approved. Humanity was too dangerous. Too wild. Better to lock them away until they learned to behave. A few species protested, those who had good relations with humans, but they were outvoted. The Council immediately began construction of the quarantine platforms. Massive automated weapons stations positioned around human space. They would fire on any ship trying to leave. No questions asked. It was a prison made of satellites and laser cannons. On Earth, The message arrived in the middle of the night. Military command centers lit up across the planet. Government officials rushed to emergency meetings. But there was no panic. There were no protests. Earth had been preparing for this moment since the trial began. President Kwan addressed the planet the next morning. "The Galactic Council has decided humanity is not ready for the stars," she said calmly. "They believe we are too dangerous, too young, too unpredictable. They have placed us under quarantine, believing this will contain us." She paused, and something in her expression made billions of humans lean forward. "They have made a mistake," she continued. "Not because we will fight them, not because we will break their quarantine, but because they have given us the perfect reason to leave them behind entirely." 7. The camera zoomed out, showing what stood behind her. A massive holographic star map filled the entire wall. It showed the Galactic Council's space in blue, human space in green, and beyond it, in red, thousands of unexplored systems. For the past 5 years, since we first suspected this might happen, we have been preparing. We have surveyed regions of space the Council cannot reach, areas where their ships cannot fly safely, but our ships can. We have found thousands of worlds, ready for us to claim, not under Council rules, not under Council supervision. Ours. The hologram shifted, showing designs for massive ships, colony vessels, generation ships, sleeper ships, capable of carrying millions. "We have 6 months before the quarantine activates," President Kwan said. "In that time, every human who wishes to leave Council space will do so. We will not fight for the right to stay where we are not wanted. We will instead claim territory that is rightfully ours by virtue of being able to survive there." She smiled then, and it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone about to prove everyone wrong. "The Council has chosen exile for Earth. They believe they are punishing us. They do not understand that they have set us free. Let them keep their safe, comfortable space. We will take the stars they fear." The broadcast ended. Within hours, every human colony received the same message. Within days, the greatest industrial mobilization in history began. Shipyards went into overdrive, factories ran day and night, resource extraction increased tenfold. Back on the Council station, representatives watched news from human space with growing concern. This was not the reaction they expected. Humans were supposed to be contained, not excited. "What are they doing?" one counselor asked. "They're leaving," another replied, checking the reports. "All of them. Leaving where? We don't know. But I think we made a very serious mistake." In the lunar shipyards above Earth, Commander Wu watched the first-generation ship take shape. It would carry 50,000 humans to a new world, along with everything needed to build a civilization from scratch. Behind it, 300 more ships were under construction. He thought about the Council's judgment. They called humans too dangerous, too aggressive, too innovative. They were right, he supposed. But they didn't understand that those traits were exactly what humanity needed to survive in the places they were going. The Council had tried to cage Earth. Instead, they had pointed humanity toward a frontier so vast and dangerous that only humans would dare claim it. Wu smiled. In 6 months, the Council would activate their quarantine platforms and find nobody home. The prison would be empty. The prisoners gone to places the jailers could never follow. The exile had begun, and humanity couldn't be happier about it. 5 months passed like a storm. The Galactic Council watched human space with growing unease. Something was happening, but they couldn't figure out what. Human colonies went dark one by one. Not destroyed, not silent, just busy. Every communication request went unanswered. Trade ships returned without cargo, their human partners gone. The network of human merchants, diplomats, and workers that spread across Council space vanished like smoke. They all went home, earlier than required, and once there, they simply stopped talking. The Council sent monitoring probes. What they saw made no sense. Every human world showed massive industrial activity. Energy readings went off the charts. But nothing was being exported. No ships left human space. Whatever humans were building, they were keeping it to themselves. In the council chambers, arguments erupted daily. "We should investigate further," one representative insisted. "This silence is suspicious." "Suspicious of what?" another replied. "They are complying with our orders. They are staying in their space. That was the goal. But what are they building?" No one had an answer. On Luna, Commander Wu stood in the observation deck of Shipyard 7. Beyond the transparent walls, dozens of massive vessels took shape. Each one was kilometers long, bristling with engines and armored hull plates. These were not warships, though they could defend themselves. These were arcs, designed to carry humanity to a new home. "Final count?" he asked without turning. Engineer Sora checked her tablet. 3,218 ships completed or near completion. Capacity for 12 billion people, plus cargo, plus supplies for 20 years of travel. And the calculations for the route? Triple-checked. Sora moved to stand beside him, looking out at the construction. "The Council's FTL drives can't handle the radiation in the stellar nursery region. Their ships would be torn apart. But our drives use different principles. Crude, they call it. Inefficient. But it works through stellar storms." Wu nodded slowly. "They tried to cage us with their technology. But our different approach becomes the key to freedom. There's poetry in that," Sora said with a small smile. "There's irony in it," Wu corrected. "They feared our tendency to do things differently. That very difference is what saves us." Across the moon's surface, 100 more shipyards worked without rest. Robots and humans labored side by side, building the greatest fleet in history. Not to conquer, not to fight, to leave. On Mars, Hana coordinated the Cultural Preservation Project. Every city, every colony, every human settlement in Council space was being carefully documented and packed. Art, music, literature, history, everything that made humanity unique had to be preserved. "Museum shipments from the Centauri colonies just arrived," her assistant reported. "That's the last of them." Hana reviewed the manifests. Paintings from Earth's ancient civilizations. Musical instruments from 1,000 cultures. Books, films, recordings of every human language. "Make sure it's all distributed across multiple ships. If we lose one vessel, we can't lose entire cultures with it." Already done. Each cultural archive is copied to at least 20 different ships. Good. Hana looked at the timeline on her wall. 4 weeks left. What about the people still in Council space? Last transport leaves in 3 days. Everyone will be home with 2 weeks to spare. 2 weeks to spare, and 1 week before the exodus began. The timing was tight. But it would work. It had to work. In the Titan research facility, Yuna reviewed the final survey data. The region humanity was targeting had been mapped in secret over the past 3 years. Long-range probes, disguised as automated research equipment, had scanned thousands of star systems. What they found was exactly what humanity needed. "These systems have radiation types the Council species can't tolerate," she explained to the Science Council. "Not immediately fatal, but long-term exposure would cause genetic damage to most of their biologies. For humans, with our particular genetic structure and our medical technology, it's manageable." "And the worlds themselves?" someone asked. 4,200 potentially habitable planets. Another 8,000 that could be terraformed. It's more space than the entire Council controls. The room fell silent at that number. They were leaving behind a small corner of the galaxy to claim a vast expanse the Council couldn't use. "There's something else," Yuna continued, pulling up another display. "The stellar instability in this region makes standard FTL navigation nearly impossible. Jump drives fail. Warp engines fluctuate. But our slipspace drives, the ones the Council calls primitive, they actually work better in unstable space. The very technology they mocked will let us travel freely in a region they can't navigate." She smiled. "We won't just survive out there. We'll thrive." The Council didn't understand what was happening until week 23. One of their deep space monitoring stations, positioned near human territory, detected something alarming. Human ships were gathering at the edge of their space. Hundreds of them. Then, thousands. They're massing a fleet, a military counselor warned. They're going to attack. But Ambassador Tay's recorded message arrived before panic could spread. It played on every council station simultaneously. To the Galactic Council, Tay's image said, standing in what was obviously an empty building. You have judged humanity unfit for galactic society. We accept your judgment. We also accept that you have given us 6 months to remove ourselves from your presence. We are complying. He gestured to the empty space around him. This is the United Nations headquarters on Earth. As you can see, we have packed up and are leaving. Not just this building. All of them. Every human colony, every station, every settlement in or near council space is being evacuated. The camera pulled back to show the entire chamber, completely bare. You wish to contain us. We have decided instead to leave entirely. The quarantine platforms you are building will find nobody to contain. We are going to a region of space you have never explored, because you cannot safely explore it. We thank you for the motivation to seek true independence. Tay's expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes suggested satisfaction. We leave behind only one thing. Coordinates to systems we surveyed and found unusable for our purposes. They may be of value to your civilizations. Consider it compensation for any inconvenience. Goodbye, Council. Perhaps we will meet again someday, under better circumstances. The message ended. Chaos erupted in the council chambers. They're abandoning everything? They're actually leaving? Where are they going? A science team was dispatched to Earth immediately. What they found shocked them even more than the message. Earth wasn't just evacuated. It was stripped. Orbital factories, dismantled and packed. Asteroid mining operations, gone. Space stations, empty husks. Even the infrastructure on the planet's surface had been carefully deactivated and mothballed. They took everything, the lead scientist reported back. Every piece of technology, every resource they could carry. This wasn't an evacuation. This was a total extraction. More disturbing discoveries followed. The quarantine platforms the Council had installed were discovered to have been subtly modified. Tiny changes to their power systems that wouldn't become apparent for years. Changes that would cause them to fail. The humans had sabotaged their own prison, not to escape, but to ensure the Council couldn't use it after they left. Week 26 arrived. The last human transport left Council space, carrying the final group of citizens home. The human ambassador formally closed all diplomatic offices. Trade agreements were terminated. Cultural exchange programs ended. Every connection between humanity and the Council was severed. And then, in week 27, they began to leave. The fleet assembled at the edge of human space was beyond massive. 3,000 ships, from the smallest fast scouts to the largest generation ships. They carried 12 billion humans, everything they owned, and everything they would need to build a new civilization. Captain Nari stood on the bridge of the Times New Dawn Asterisk, the lead colony ship. She was young for such responsibility, barely 30, but she had trained her entire life for this moment. Around her, crew members worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. All ships report ready, her first officer announced. Course plotted and confirmed, navigation reported. Heading into the Orion Gap, stellar nursery region. High radiation, high instability, and completely empty of Council presence. Nari looked at the view screen. Behind them, human space lay quiet and dark. Ahead, space itself seemed to shimmer with radiation and stellar storms. It was beautiful and terrifying. Send the signal, she ordered. All ships, begin exodus. Let's go home. Home? Someone asked. We've never been there. Nari smiled. That's what makes it home. We're not running from anything. We're running toward everything. 3,000 ships engaged their drives and slipped into FTL. The Council's sensors tracked them until they entered the unstable region. Then the readings became confused. scattered. The fleet disappeared from all tracking. The Council had successfully exiled humanity from their space. They didn't yet understand that they had freed humanity to become something far greater. The Council envoys arrived at Earth 3 weeks after the fleet departed. They came with peace offerings, suddenly concerned about humanity's complete silence. What they found unsettled them deeply. The quarantine platforms were active, weapons charged and ready. But there was nothing to quarantine. Earth orbited its sun peacefully, cities intact but empty. Power still flowed. Automated systems maintained everything, but no humans remained. "This doesn't make sense," the lead envoy said, a being named Krill from a species that resembled walking crystals. "Why leave the infrastructure functional? Maybe they plan to return?" Another suggested. They landed in New York, in the famous plaza where the United Nations had stood for centuries. The building was immaculate, clean, preserved, but hollow. Their footsteps echoed in the empty halls. In the main assembly chamber, they found a holographic projector waiting for them. It activated as they entered. Ambassador Tay appeared, life-sized, standing at the podium where he had once addressed the real council. "Welcome to Earth," his recorded message began. "If you are seeing this, it means the Council has sent representatives to check on humanity. We appreciate your concern, but as you can see, we have complied fully with your judgment." Tay gestured to the empty chamber. "You decided humanity was not ready for galactic society. You chose to isolate us, to contain us, to force us to develop in solitude. We heard your message clearly. We are not welcome in your space." His expression remained calm, but his words carried weight. "Therefore, we have removed ourselves entirely. Not because we fear your quarantine, not because we cannot break it, but because we have found something better. A region of space where we can develop according to our own nature, our own values, our own timeline." The hologram shifted to show a star map. Thousands of systems glowed in a region marked Orion Gap. "We surveyed this territory over several years. It is rich in resources, filled with habitable worlds, and completely unsuitable for Council species due to radiation types your biologies cannot tolerate. For humans, it is perfect." Tay smiled slightly. "We thank you, Council, for making this decision easy for us. In trying to contain humanity, you have given us a reason to seek true independence. We leave behind this infrastructure as a gift. Perhaps someday, another species will find use for it. Or perhaps you will maintain it as a museum, a reminder of the species you thought was too dangerous." He stepped closer to the camera. "We also leave behind coordinates to systems we surveyed and found unsuitable for human colonization, but which may serve your needs. Consider it compensation for any inconvenience our departure may have caused." The smile faded. "This is not goodbye forever. The galaxy is large, and humanity is curious. Perhaps in a few generations, when we have built our own civilization in our own way, we will meet again, on more equal terms." The hologram faded. The envoys stood in silence. Then one of them noticed something. The coordinates he mentioned. Where are they? They found them in the building's main computer, left in a file marked "Gift." Thousands of star systems, all surveyed and catalogued, all supposedly unusable by human standards. The data was incredibly detailed, worth decades of exploration work. It seemed generous, until Council scientists reviewed the data and realized what they were looking at. These systems were indeed unusable by humans, but they were also relatively poor in resources compared to where humanity had gone. It wasn't so much a gift as a polite insult. "Here are the scraps we didn't want." Back in Council chambers, the mood shifted from relief to concern. The human problem was solved, they initially thought. But reports kept coming in that suggested otherwise. Trade routes that humans had maintained now required expensive detours. Human security contractors who had patrolled dangerous sectors were gone, and piracy increased. Human medical research that had been freely shared stopped flowing. Small problems at first, but they accumulated. Council economist Ara presented her findings 6 months after humanity's departure. The numbers were damning. Humanity represented 4% of the Council economy, she explained. That sounds small, but they were concentrated in key sectors. Dangerous mining operations, deep space exploration, medical innovation, security services. Their absence creates gaps. She pulled up trade route maps. These routes are now 40% more expensive to maintain. These sectors have seen piracy increase by 60%. These medical treatments are no longer available because humans were the only ones researching them. Surely we can adapt, someone argued. We are adapting, but adaptation has costs. My projections suggest the Council economy will contract by 8% over the next decade directly because of humanity's absence, and that's assuming no other complications arise. Other complications did arise. The Velon Empire, an aggressive species that had maintained an uneasy peace with their neighbors, suddenly became more bold. Human trading posts had formed a buffer zone between Velon and several weaker species. With humans gone, the Velon saw opportunity. Small conflicts erupted. Border disputes that humans would have mediated turned into shooting matches. The Council had to deploy peacekeepers, something that hadn't been necessary in decades. The humans were keeping the peace without us even realizing it, one military commander admitted. Their presence alone deterred certain behaviors. 2 years after humanity's departure, Captain Bin of the exploration vessel Seeker Times discovered something that changed everything. His ship specialized in investigating anomalies, and this was definitely an anomaly. We're picking up artificial signals, his sensor officer reported. Near the old human territories. I thought those territories were abandoned. They were. This is an empty space. A system humans supposedly evacuated. They investigated carefully. What they found was a relay station, hidden in the asteroid field of an empty system. It was small, automated, and very advanced, more advanced than any human technology the Council had seen before. What is it doing? Bin asked. Collecting data, monitoring hyperspace signatures, tracking ship movements, and transmitting everything. The officer paused, checking again, transmitting toward deep space, toward the Orion Gap. They're watching us, Bin realized. They left, but they're still monitoring Council space. More relay stations were discovered over the following months. Dozens of them, scattered throughout systems near the old human territories. All collecting data. All transmitting toward wherever humanity had gone. The Council called an emergency session. This is espionage, one representative declared. We should destroy these stations. And achieve what? Another countered. The humans are gone. These stations are just watching. They're not attacking or interfering. But the technology, a science counselor noted. These relays are decades ahead of what humans had when they left. In just 2 years, they've advanced significantly. That realization settled over the chamber like cold water. Humanity wasn't just surviving in their harsh new territory. They were thriving. Meanwhile, in the Orion Gap, a very different story was unfolding. Commander Wu, now elderly and gray, stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above New Terra, the first permanent human colony in their new space. Below, a city of 5 million people gleamed in the light of a young, energetic star. Status report, he requested. Colony 73 just reached self-sufficiency, an aide informed him. That's ahead of schedule. Colony 85 reports discovery of rare mineral deposits, and the generation ships report the children born during the journey are adapting even better than expected to the high radiation environment. Wu nodded slowly. How many colonies now? 100 operational, 50 more under construction. Total human population in the new territories is approaching 20 billion. 20 billion. In just 2 years, the growth was exponential, driven by the sheer number of habitable worlds and humanity's aggressive colonization approach. Young engineer Leah entered the observation deck carrying a data tablet. Commander, the stellar engineering project is ready for final testing. Already? Wu turned to her. I thought you needed another year. We adapted faster than expected. The radiation that makes this region dangerous for Council species has taught us how to manipulate stellar physics in ways they never attempted. We're not fighting the environment. We're using it. She showed him the data. Humanity had learned to harvest energy directly from unstable stars. The very stars that made FTL travel impossible for Council ships. Each colony was powered by stellar engineering technology that would seem like magic to the Council. "Show me," Wu said. They took a shuttle to the test site. A small moon orbiting a violently unstable star. The star fluctuated in brightness and temperature, throwing off radiation that would kill most Council species in hours. For humans in proper shielding, it was manageable. The test facility was built into the moon's surface. Inside, humanity's best scientists had constructed something revolutionary: a stellar tap, a device that could draw energy directly from the star's instability and convert it to useful power. "Activating now," Leah announced. The device hummed to life. Energy readings spiked. The star's chaotic output was channeled, focused, transformed into clean power that flowed into massive batteries. "It works," someone whispered. "Of course it works," Leah said with confidence. "We built it." Wu watched the energy levels climb. This single facility could power a city of 10 million people. And there were thousands of these unstable stars in human space. Thousands of potential power sources the Council feared and avoided. "The Council thought our technology was primitive," he said quietly. "They never understood that primitive and effective aren't opposites. They never understood that we solve problems they avoid." That night, back in his quarters, Wu composed a report for the human government. In it, he detailed their progress. 100 colonies, 20 billion citizens, revolutionary new technology, complete energy independence, full self-sufficiency, and at the end, he added a note. "The Council's exile was the greatest gift they could have given us. Without their restrictions, their regulations, their constant oversight, we have advanced faster in 2 years than we did in 20 years under their watch. We are becoming something they never imagined we could be." Far away, in Council space, the relay stations continued their silent watch, recording everything and sending it all back to humanity. The exiles were gone, but they were not forgotten, and someday they would return. 50 years after humanity's exodus, the Galactic Council faced a crisis they never anticipated. It started small, with minor problems that seemed unrelated. But slowly, the pattern emerged. Council economist Ara, now a senior advisor and one of the few who remembered the human exodus personally, presented her findings to a packed chamber. Her fur, once bright blue, had faded with age, but her mind remained sharp. 50 years ago, I warned that humanity's departure would cost us 8% economic contraction. She began. I was wrong. The actual impact is closer to 15%. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. 15% was enormous for an economy as large as the Council's. The problems are cascading, Ara continued, displaying charts and graphs. Without human medical research, our healthcare costs have increased dramatically. Without human security contractors, we've had to expand military spending. Without human mining operations in dangerous regions, resource costs have tripled. She pulled up a new display. But the real issue is innovation. In the 50 years before human exile, the Council registered an average of 10,000 new patents annually. In the 50 years since, that number has dropped to 4,000. Humans represented only 4% of our population, but they generated 30% of new ideas. Surely other species can innovate, someone protested. They do. But humans approached problems differently. They took risks we wouldn't take. They tried solutions we considered too dangerous or too crude. And sometimes, those crude solutions worked better than our elegant ones. The chamber fell silent. The truth was uncomfortable. They had exiled humanity to protect galactic stability. Instead, they had removed one of the main drivers of galactic progress. But the economic problems were only part of the story. In the border regions, conflicts had escalated. The Velon Empire, once contained by human trading posts and security forces, had grown aggressive. They now occupied systems that once formed a buffer zone. Smaller species appealed to the Council for protection. "We need peacekeepers in Sector 7, a military commander reported. "The Velen are moving again. Deploy the 4th Fleet," the Council ordered. But deployments cost money, and Council military forces weren't designed for constant patrol duty. Humans had done that job cheaply and efficiently. Now the Council had to do it themselves, at enormous expense. Worse, the Velen weren't afraid of Council forces the way they had been cautious around human mercenaries. Council rules of engagement were predictable, bound by treaties and protocols. Humans had been creative, unpredictable, dangerous when provoked. The Velen had respected that. In a research station orbiting a gas giant, Council scientists made a discovery that sent waves through the academic community. Dr. Jin, a young researcher, had been studying the old human relay stations for years. She had finally figured out what they were really doing. "They're not just monitoring us," she explained to her colleagues. "They're learning from us. These stations have adaptive AI that watches our technological development and transmits analysis back to human space." Our key. So they're stealing our technology? No, they're watching to make sure they stay ahead of us. Look at this code. She displayed the programming on a holographic screen. "This AI is more advanced than anything we have, and remember, the humans left these stations 50 years ago. What can they build now?" Another scientist examined the data. "If they've been advancing this quickly for 50 years, then they're far beyond us," Jin finished. "The species we exiled as too primitive may now be the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy." The implications were staggering. The Council had assumed humanity would struggle in their harsh new territory, maybe barely survive. Nobody expected them to thrive. More discoveries followed. A merchant ship found the remains of an automated mining operation in an asteroid field near human territory. The technology was clearly human, but it was unlike anything humans had used before the Exile. The efficiency was remarkable. The design revolutionary. "They're mining in our space?" the Council demanded. "Technically, this is unclaimed territory," legal experts pointed out. "And these are just robots. No humans present. Still, it's concerning. They're expanding." They were more than expanding. They were preparing. Far away in human space, the civilization the Council feared had become a reality. Commander Wu had passed away years ago, but his legacy lived on. New Terra was now a gleaming metropolis of 50 million people, the capital of an empire that stretched across 4,000 star systems. In the Grand Assembly building, human leaders gathered to discuss their future. The current administrator, a woman named Mira, called the meeting to order. "The relay stations report Council military activity is increasing," she began. "Border conflicts, resource shortages, economic problems. The Council is struggling. As we predicted," another Council member noted. "They removed the species that solved problems they preferred to ignore. Now those problems are returning. Should we offer assistance?" someone asked. The room erupted in debate. Some argued humanity owed the Council nothing. They had been exiled, abandoned, told they were too dangerous. Others suggested that helping the Council would prove humanity's maturity. Admiral Hyun, one of the youngest people in the room, stood to speak. She represented the third generation born in human space, those who had never seen Earth or Council space. "I don't think we should help them. But I also don't think we should hide forever. We've built something amazing out here. We have technology the Council can't imagine. We have resources they need. Maybe it's time we remind them that humanity exists." "You want to make contact?" Mira asked. "Eventually. But first, I think we should show them what we've become." On the orbital defense platform above New Terra, Captain Bin worked on the latest generation of human starships. These weren't the crude vessels that fled Council space 50 years ago. These were sleek, powerful, incorporating technology born from necessity in the harsh stellar environment. "How many ships in the fleet now?" he asked his second officer. "Active warships?" "About 15,000. Colony ships, another 20,000. Explorer and science vessels, too many to count. Every major colony has its own shipyard now. 15,000 warships. The Council's entire military was maybe 12,000 ships. Humanity, in just 50 years, had built a fleet larger than the entire Council Navy, but the ships themselves were what truly mattered. Human vessels used stellar radiation for shielding. Something Council ships couldn't do. They powered themselves from stellar instability. They could travel through regions of space that would tear apart any Council vessel. "We're not just different anymore," Bin said quietly. "We're superior. At least in our environment," his officer nodded. "The question is, what do we do with that superiority?" On a newly settled world called Haven, young people who had never known Earth prepared for lives the Council could not imagine. The planet orbited an unstable star, bathed in radiation that would kill most Council species. For humans, with generations of adaptation and advanced medical technology, it was home. Leah, now a leading scientist, worked with her students on the latest project. They were building a device that could stabilize a star's output, turning dangerous stellar objects into safe, powerful energy sources. "If this works," one student said, "we could go anywhere, even back to Council space." "Why would we want to?" another student asked. "They kicked us out, because they need us," Leah replied. "The Council is failing. Not collapsing, but declining. And we have the technology and resources to help. The question is whether we should." She looked at her students, all born in human space, all shaped by the reality of their harsh but resource-rich environment. They were stronger than humans of the old era, adapted to radiation that would harm their ancestors. They were smarter too, educated in schools that prized innovation over tradition. The Council had feared humanity would destroy themselves or others. Instead, isolation had forced humanity to become better, tougher, more creative, more capable. "I think," Leah said slowly, "that in another generation or two, we'll be ready to make contact again. Not as the species that was exiled, but as equals. Maybe even as the dominant power. Change is Enivast. Enivast. Number 4. Number 4. Number 4. Number 4. Her students looked shocked. Dominant power? Think about it. We control 4,000 systems. They control maybe 5,000. But our systems are richer in resources, and we can access stellar energy they can't. Our population is growing faster. Our technology is advancing faster. In 50 years, we went from exiles to empire. In another 50. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Back in Council space, Ambassador Tay's daughter, now elderly herself, watched the news broadcasts about Council problems. She had been young when her father negotiated humanity's exile. She had been angry then, feeling that the Council had betrayed them. Now, watching the Council struggle with problems humanity used to solve, she felt something different. Not quite satisfaction, but a sense of vindication. Her father had been right. The exile was a gift, not a punishment. She composed a message to the human government. "It's time," she wrote. "Time to remind the Council that humanity still exists. Not to threaten them, not to gloat, but to show them what we've become. And perhaps, to offer a hand in friendship. On our terms this time." The message was sent through the relay network, traveling across light years to reach human space. It would take time to receive a response. But she knew what that response would be. Humanity was coming back. Not as supplicants begging to rejoin Council space, but as neighbors. Visiting from a distant land, they had built themselves, the exiles were about to return, and the galaxy would never be the same. The ship appeared without warning at the edge of Council space. One moment, sensors showed empty void. The next, a vessel materialized that made every Council military officer sit up and take notice. It was beautiful in a way Council ships were not. Sleek and dark, it seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. The hull shimmered with energy patterns no Council sensor could properly identify. It was clearly artificial, clearly a ship. But beyond that, Council technology struggled to get a reading. Unidentified vessel, you have entered Council space. The Border Patrol transmitted. Identify yourself immediately. The response came in perfect Council common, but the voice was unmistakably human. This is the Human Diplomatic Vessel times Unity *, commanded by Admiral Hyun. We request an audience with the Galactic Council. We come in peace, silence, then chaos. The news spread across Council space like wildfire. Humans. After 200 years of silence, humans had returned. The reaction was mixed. Fear. Curiosity. Anger. Relief. No one quite knew what to feel. The Council called an emergency session. The debate raged for hours. Should they allow the humans to approach? What if this was an attack? What if the humans wanted revenge for their exile? But curiosity won over fear. The humans were invited to the same station where they had been sentenced to exile 2 centuries ago. Security was tripled. Military ships surrounded the station. The Council took no chances. The Unity times, docked smoothly. Its advanced design making the Council ships around it look primitive by comparison. Admiral Hyun disembarked with a small delegation. She was young, perhaps 40 standard years, with the confident bearing of someone who had never known defeat. With her came Ambassador Nari, granddaughter of the captain who led the first Exodus fleet, and Chief Scientist Rock, a man whose credentials in stellar physics made Council scientists nervous just reading them. They wore simple uniforms, dark blue with silver trim, the same colors humans had worn 200 years ago. But everything else about them was different. They moved with easy confidence. They showed no fear, no hesitation. These were not people asking for permission. These were equals, perhaps more than equals. The Council chamber was exactly as it had been 2 centuries before. The same seats, the same lighting, the same arrangement designed to make visitors feel small. Admiral Hyun walked to the center and looked around with interest, not intimidation. "Thank you for seeing us," she began, her voice calm and professional. "It has been a long time since humans stood in this chamber." The lead counselor, a different individual but the same species as before, spoke carefully. "Indeed. 200 years ago, this council exiled humanity from galactic society. Now you return. We must ask, what are your intentions?" Hyun smiled slightly. "Our intentions are simple. To establish diplomatic relations. To discuss trade possibilities. To share scientific knowledge. To be neighbors." "Neighbors," the counselor repeated. "You speak as if you are our equals. Are we not?" Hyun asked politely. The question hung in the air. The counselor had no good answer. By every metric that mattered, yes, humans were equals. Their technology was clearly advanced. Their confidence suggested military strength. Their very presence here proved they had thrived, not merely survived. Ambassador Nari stepped forward with a holographic display. Perhaps some context would help. 200 years ago, humanity was exiled from Council space. We were confined to our home system and told we were too dangerous, too young, too unpredictable for galactic society. The hologram showed Earth, lonely and quarantined. We accepted your judgment. We left. Not because we feared your quarantine, but because you had shown us we were not welcome. So we found new territory, far from your space, and we built our own civilization. The hologram expanded, showing the Orion Gap region. Thousands of stars glowed, each one marked with human colonies. In 200 years, humanity has claimed 4,000 star systems. Our population is 800 billion. We have 20,000 major colonies and countless smaller settlements. We control more territory than the 3 largest council empires combined. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. 800 billion. 4,000 systems. The numbers were staggering. "Impossible," someone shouted. "You had 12 billion people 200 years ago. You couldn't grow that fast." Scientist Rock spoke for the first time. "We could, and we did. The region we settled is rich in resources and habitable worlds. More importantly, the challenges of that environment forced us to innovate rapidly. We grew fast because we had to. He pulled up technical displays. You exiled us to a region of space your ships cannot safely navigate. The stellar radiation, the spatial instability, all the things that make your FTL drives fail. We learned to thrive in those conditions. We learned to use the radiation for power. We learned to navigate the instability. We turned every challenge into an advantage. The displays showed human technology, stellar engineering, advanced materials science, medical innovations, energy systems beyond Council comprehension. It was all far beyond anything Council civilization had developed. You called our technology crude, Rock continued. You were right. It was crude. But crude doesn't mean ineffective. While you refined your elegant solutions, we built things that simply worked. And in the harsh environment we settled, working was more important than elegance. Admiral Hyun stepped forward again. We don't come here to threaten you. We don't come to demand apologies or reparations. We come to establish peaceful relations between neighbors. And if we refuse? A counselor asked. Then we will respect your decision, Hyun replied calmly. We will return to our own space and continue building our civilization. But we would prefer cooperation. We have technology you could use, resources we can trade, scientific knowledge to share. She paused. More importantly, the galaxy is large. There's room for both of us. The Council controls the safe, stable regions near the core. Humanity controls the wild, resource-rich regions in the spiral arms. We could coexist peacefully, even beneficially. A elder counselor, one of the few who remembered the original Exile, spoke up. Her voice was weak with age but sharp with memory. 200 years ago, we judged humanity too dangerous to remain in our society. Now you return, stronger than we imagined possible. Should we fear you? Hyun turned to face her directly. Counselor, you should respect us. But fear? No. Humanity learned something in our exile. We learned that we don't need the Council's approval to thrive. We learned that we're capable of building something great on our own. That knowledge brings confidence, not aggression. She smiled. 200 years ago, humans were young and trying to prove ourselves worthy of your acceptance. We don't need to prove anything anymore. We know our worth. That makes us more stable, not less. Ambassador Nari added, the Council feared we would destroy ourselves or others. The isolation you imposed gave us space to mature without your constant oversight. In a way, the exile was the best thing that could have happened to us. The words struck deep. The Council's attempt to contain humanity had freed them to become something far greater. The irony was not lost on anyone in the chamber. We should confer, the lead counselor said finally. This is a significant development. We need time to discuss. Of course, Hyun agreed. We'll wait aboard our ship. As the human delegation left, the council chamber erupted in debate. The arguments went in circles. Some wanted to reject the humans outright, afraid of what they had become. Others saw opportunity. A few recognized the truth that most avoided. Humanity was no longer asking for permission. They were simply being polite. 3 days later, the council reached a decision. Limited diplomatic relations would be established. Trade would be allowed in neutral zones. Scientific exchanges would be considered on a case-by-case basis. It was cautious, careful, but it was a beginning. Admiral Hyun accepted the terms with grace. We thank the Council for their openness. We look forward to a productive relationship. As the Unity Times prepared to depart, Councillor Mira, who had voted for the original Exile as a young representative, requested a private meeting with Hyun. The Admiral agreed. They met in a small conference room, just the two of them. Mira looked old and tired, burdened by 2 centuries of political service. I voted to exile your people, Mira said quietly. I believed we were protecting the galaxy. Now I see we were acting from fear, not wisdom. You were protecting your civilization the only way you knew how, Hyun replied without rancor. We don't hold grudges. The past is done. But you must resent us. We tried to cage you. Hyun considered the question carefully. 200 years ago, my ancestors probably did resent the council. They were angry, hurt, rejected. But they channeled that into building something better. My generation, those of us born in the new territories, we don't resent you. We thank you. Thank us? Yes. The exile forced humanity to stand on its own, to innovate without depending on council technology, to build a civilization that reflected our values, not yours, to become truly independent. Hyun smiled. If the council had accepted us, we would have remained a small part of your civilization, always trying to fit into your culture. Instead, we became our own civilization, stronger, larger, more capable. She stood to leave. Your ancestors gave mine the greatest gift possible, though you didn't realize it at the time. You gave us freedom, true freedom, and we used it well. As the Unity Times departed Council space, Scientist Rock sent a final transmission to the Council's scientific database. It contained detailed information about human stellar engineering, offered freely as a goodwill gesture. Council scientists who examined the data were shocked. The technology was revolutionary, but more importantly, it came with a message. We learned this because we had to. You never needed to. So you never discovered it. Perhaps that's the difference between our peoples. We embrace challenges. We find opportunities in difficulties. We turned exile into empire. Aboard the Unity asterisk, Admiral Hyun looked at the starscape through the view screen. Behind them, Council space looked small and confined, a cluster of safe systems in a dangerous galaxy. Ahead, beyond the sensor range, lay human space. Wild, dangerous, alive with possibility. Send the message home, she ordered. First contact re-established. The Council wants peace. Begin trade negotiations and cultural exchanges. As her crew worked, Hyun reflected on the journey humanity had taken. 200 years ago, they were exiled as dangerous children. Now they returned as powerful adults. The Council had tried to contain them, to limit them, to control them. Instead, they had set humanity free. In 200 years, the exiles had become an empire. An empire built not through conquest, but through determination, innovation, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept limits. The Council had chosen exile for Earth. Humanity hadn't stuck around to be caged. They had left to become something greater. And now, returning not as supplicants, but as equals, they proved the ultimate irony. The attempt to contain them had created what the Council feared most, not through aggression or war, but through the simple act of giving humanity room to grow into their full potential. The exile was over. The new relationship was just beginning. And the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.